ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। मुखाकरोति वाचालं पङ्गोरं गायत्रीगिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरो दिनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्येश्वर। Hello, Hare Krishna everybody. I am very grateful and excited to do this session on Enneagram and Bhakti. And if you have any questions, you can post it in the chat box. And at the end of the session, we will attend to the questions. Okay. So there are two aspects of our identity. One is Swabhava and the other is Swarupa. So what does Swabhava mean and what does Swarupa mean? Now, there is an eternal identity that we all have as spirit souls that is unchangeable, it's permanent. And then there is what we call as Swabhava, which is an acquired nature. So one is an intrinsic nature, eternal nature, and the other is the acquired nature. And in the scriptures, it is said how Jivera Swarupoi Krishna Nityadas. So speaking about the Swarupa aspect, that eternal identity, it's we are servants of God, we're servants of Krishna, and that's unchangeable. Whereas the Swabhava is something which is acquired, due to gunas, such as the gunas like sattva, rajas, tamas, depending on which guna we function, we acquire a specific nature. And then it's also dependent on, also the Swabhava is dependent on our karmas and our janma, what kind of parenting we have had, and what kind of gunas we are functioning under, etc. Swabhava or Swarupa, both the word swa in Sanskrit is very important to understand. Swa is self. So on the Swarupa aspect, the self is the soul, which is the own, the self, swa, meaning what we own, who are we, that sense of identity. And the own self, what is it? It's all about self-discovery. So on an eternal aspect, on the living entity is eternal identity aspect, which is fixed, again, it's eternal. There is not much we can do, there is not much we can adjust. But whereas on the Swabhava aspect, we can actually work on ourselves so that we can align that Swarupa that we have as eternal servants of God with our Swabhava and align that as much as possible. That's the self-discovery aspect. Self-discovery is an essential part in spiritual development. Without self-discovery, if we don't really understand what prison we're living in, what are the conditionings we have, and what we're working towards, it becomes difficult to get out of this conditioned material life. And very important, and what I find very exciting is also, there's a pure aspect of these, natures and the Swabhava, how we function, how we think, how we act. It's there originally in the Supreme Lord. So Krishna himself is a prototype of all these personalities we will be talking about. So all these, for example, nectar devotion, it is described how Krishna has the mood of Dhirodatta. He takes incarnations, he takes avatars as very serious, sober incarnations such as Ramachandra. And then he has the Dhira Lalita, very like fun-loving, Krishna's incarnation. And then there is Dhirodatta and Dhirodhatta. So there are different, like Nashingadev, okay? When he appears, he acts differently than Rama or Krishna. His way of thinking and acting is very, very different from how Rama acted, Krishna acted. Similarly, our Swabhava, to understand our Swabhava, we need to be open and understanding of Krishna's Swabhava and nature and personal characteristics. Okay, so what happens when we actually do this alignment between our swabhava so that we can align more to that swarupa, the eternal identity, is that that process is to become liberated, and it's to become to work on our character, personal character, and that's how we will align. So in Bhagavad Gita, for instance, right, I want to quote this 1845. In 1845, there's a very relevant verse to understand this different natures and how that works. Okay. Swe swe karmanyabhiratha samsiddhim labate naraha swakarma niratha siddhim yatha vindati tachruno. By following his qualities of work, every man can become perfect. Now, please hear from me how this can be done. So this is Krishna telling Arjuna about different natures. When we come into spiritual life, we're told these are the things we must do, and this is how we're supposed to perform. But we all carry that acquired nature according to which we need to act so that we can achieve perfection. So for example, there's a nature of a farmer or a worker. They have a specific nature. They can stay out in the sun all day and work really hard, and that can be aligned towards specific devotional service. Or somebody else may have a tendency and a inclination towards research. They like to study, so that can be also aligned towards serving the Supreme Lord. Okay, now we spoke a little bit about the physiological nature aspect, but there's also subtle motivators. There are basic fears that we all have. Different individuals have different fears, different motivators. See, it's very important to understand this natures and psychology and typology so that we can overcome, not become overwhelmed by lower modes, the lower natures, because the lower nature always kind of drags us down, makes us feel negative and makes us feel bad about ourselves and lack of confidence. And that kind of again comes under the mode of tamas, tamaguna, ignorance. So in ignorance, we tend to kind of be destructive. We tend to be depressed. Whereas, another thing is in the scriptures, it is said how there is so many ways to understand our natures. There's astrology, the 9 planets, and understanding. And also there is Hasta Samudrika Shastra, is palmistry. It's also known as Darpana. They say that looking at our palm is like looking at a mirror. So you can actually look into your palm and look at the lines and actually understand what are the physiological, psychological patterns that actually is keeping us under bondage in this world. And we can actually analyze in different ways. Because this whole, let me just show you this, the way the Sattva, Rajas, Tamas actually works. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, and I want to show you these 2 pictures. Okay, so this is the 3 doshas. Let me first show you this one. I can just talk about this one. So the 3 doshas, right? Like even in Ayurveda, right? That's another way of understanding our natures, basic natures, and working on it. So there's Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And in Vata, then people are naturally affected by air. Air is the element, and the element causes worry. Usually Vata, when people are predominated by Vata, we worry a lot, etc. And we were predominated by Pitta, passion, anger, and Kapha, like kind of laziness and being not being very decisive. All these things can also give us an idea about our natures. Now, we in this section of Bhakti and Enneagram, we will be discussing the 9 types of Enneagram, which has a very strong correlation with planetary connection is very evident. And it's very simple, unlike astrology, which is very complicated. So this Enneagram has actually personally helped me immensely in accepting myself, accepting others, having a better relationship, and working on my personal transformation as well. Yeah, speaking of transformation, why I really like the system is because it's focused more on transformation. It's not just like a snapshot of your psychological setup, just, okay, this is your fear, this is how you are. Like a lot of personality typologies are very much about, this is what you are, it's like you cannot change it. It's not our Swarupa, it's not, it's Swabhava, it can actually be molded. So this system of Enneagram, it's very elevating, because it gives us it definitely gives us the diagnostic tools. It tells us what we are, and what we're doing and what we are not doing, and what we should be doing, what's favorable, what's not favorable. So it's a very powerful tool for self-growth, because it indicates this is where you're sliding down and this is where you're uplifted and doing well. Yeah, so essentially it can help us understanding our own challenges and understand other people's challenges, other people in our life, and to not expect something that they cannot deliver. And we can also understand why they act in a certain way, because they have a certain pattern, they have a certain tendency, and so they act and think in specific ways. So yeah, it's been a very helpful tool in acceptance of others and myself. And as you know, conditioned souls, we all have a pattern, right? Pattern of getting ourselves messed up, getting ourselves into trouble. The conditioning, which actually, let me just stop the screen share, because it's talked about. Oh yeah, another thing I wanted to speak about the Ayurveda is also just in Ayurveda, like if we have like for my specific constitution, I'm not supposed to eat fried stuff, and it's not really good for me, but that's actually what I'm attracted to. So the Enneagram also helps to see, even in Enneagram also it works like that. We are tendentially, it's easy for us to slip down, just like I may, like for me, sweets are very good. I should be eating sweets and things, but I'm not so attracted to it. But I actually like fries and stuff, which is not actually good for me. So similarly, even in Enneagram, we are naturally inclined or attracted to go to what is going down. It's easier. And for people like, say, Kapha, they're not supposed to eat certain things, sweets are not so good for them. They shouldn't be eating oily stuff, etc. But that's what they are attracted to naturally. So this is something I found very interesting. Now, yeah, the conditioning. So this is the conditioning I'm talking about, the conditioning of wanting to eat something that's not really good for me. Similarly, we may act in certain ways that's not good for us. And see, there's no perfect type. There's not like, oh, type 1 is a perfect or whatever. It's not like that. Every type has its own strengths and challenges. It's not that one is better than the other. And understanding this conditioning is nothing to be proud of, because this is basically our shell or the false ego. This is what is the ego's pattern in which we relate to this in this world. And we have created a karma due to reacting in this world. So the system helps us to let go of that false ego of that swabhava that we have acquired. And then the ego starts identifying, this is the way I am, deal with that. So that's the anatta nivriti point. This is helping us to work on ourselves, remove those thorns, remove those obstacles towards achieving or realizing our Swarupa, coming closer to that intrinsic nature of Satchidananda, the form which is eternal, blissful, and full of happiness. To come closer to that, we need to kind of understand where we are caught up, what is our conditioning, and how to make progress and how to avoid certain things. So this is something I wanted to share for today as an introduction, that we'll be discussing these 9 types, all the fears aspect, or in childhood, what kind of messages we got and how that influences and impacts us. If you like to take a test, I can actually send a link. It's a very simple test. You just have to read a few paragraphs and put it. I can actually put the link in the YouTube comment section as well, so you can actually access it. And thank you for attending this session, Hima Sundari. I see you there. If you have any questions, if you want to ask anything, please feel free. You can also type it in the chat box if you like. Do you know your Enneagram type already? Hare Krishna. Okay, I can send the link. So it's just a PDF document with a few paragraphs. You just have to read it and then it'll be pretty easy. It's actually helpful for the next sessions to know your type. So when I'm discussing, you would understand. And it would even be fun if you ask your parents or ask some of your friends to also do the test. So you can actually understand why they think in a specific way and how can you work together with them and what are their core motivators and fears. I must warn that this typology can be a little bit attractive to type others. So we should be careful to not be too focused on others. This is mostly a self-discovery tool, but in order to have effective relationships and understand people in our life, those are very close to us, we could be benefited by understanding their natures as well. Okay, is there any question you have about the philosophy aspect and the system? Any questions about the system? I mean, it's just a very like a more like an introduction and announcement of this session and why I'm doing this, why it helped me in my self-growth, and I really truly believe this. Also, it has helped my friends and it has helped some of my mentors and my husband. They've all found it to be very useful to spiritual advancement. That's the reason I wanted to share this science with all of you. I will put an announcement on when will be the next session, but today is the first session of introducing the importance of Enneagram and Bhakti. Anything else? Otherwise, I'm going to end here. Okay. Okay. So the question is, can it change? The specific swabhava, like the type, we have 9 types in Enneagram, that doesn't change, but the Enneagram system has this beauty, the transformational tool. For instance, okay, type 1. Type 1 is all about perfection. It's ruled by planet Saturn. It's all about being just and justice and putting things in the right way. It's all about that. So somebody who's born with that as their primary primary planet that rules them, primary characteristic they have, that doesn't change. But within that perfectionist nature, the person can be perfectionist in tamagun, can be in rajagun or in sattvagun. And I think you can go beyond sattvagun as well. For example, somebody in tamogun can be very destructive, go around destroying the enthusiasm of people and being really careless about consequences and just be critical of everybody and everything. And in rajagun, they may become very confrontational, have a lot of relational conflicts by always correcting people, not having a stable relationship. People may not really trust them or feel comfortable with them. That's a type 1's challenge. And in sattvagun, they try to be right, they try to be just, and they try to accept others for where they are and be more considerate and wait for the others to ask them for an advice before they go and correct others. But can it change? Like the person, if they can actually go beyond sattva, they can go to what we call in the Enneagram type 1 is supposed to develop characteristics and natures of Mercury. Mercury is number 7. So 7 is like chill, relax, you cannot fix everything. So we will be doing a session specifically on this direction of transformation of what we call in Enneagram is also integration and disintegration. So when we go towards integration, we are essentially changing, you can say, changing our swabhava to become the best version of that type. So we may not change the basic nature that we may have, the swabhava, the acquired nature, because of our body, the parenting style, because of our karmas. If somebody is a farmer and they like farming, there's no need to change it. There's only need to dovetail it and become more devotional and become more peaceful, sattva guna. And somebody who is more lazy type or something, they don't actually like to work, etc., and they maybe say type 9. The type 9 is where they're not kind of Jupiter. They have a bigger vision, they're very peaceful, they're very harmonious, etc., but they are very they don't want to work hard, they don't want to go out of their comfort zone. So being in sattva means they go to the number 3. Like 3 is all about like sun, being giving, being giving. So that's very difficult. Like Jupiter and sun, they don't actually get along. So for them to go towards that would be a great change. So somebody who likes to just sit in the house and binge watch, for that person to go out there, be a giving person, be generous, help others, could be a great change. But they may not change their nature of wanting harmony, wanting being a relaxed time. They will not become like a super enthusiastic, energetic person, but they can develop that. That's the goal of the Enneagram, to go towards what's good for us. And somebody who's a type 1, for them to relax is very, very difficult. It's their austerity. So everybody has our own austerity. And if you mean by doing something that's difficult for us is change, yes, we are meant to change. But if you mean by, if the type, like if you're a type 1, is that going to change? Not necessarily. You may have to develop qualities of 7, but you're not going to become a 7 or any other number. You don't need to become. There's no need for the change, and I don't think it's possible. It's like we're born with certain kind of parents, we're born with certain kind of inclinations. Again, we can function, those inclinations can function on a either higher level or lower modes. So we all have higher mode and lower modes. The higher self is always telling us, chant your rounds, study scriptures, go and serve others, those higher frequency. And then there's a lower frequency also, like sleep late, don't do this, don't do that. There's that. So which frequency we vibrate on is also very relevant in this context, to see about the change of whether we can change our natures. So does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So if you don't have any other question, I'm going to end the topic here. I'm going to give another class, Bhagavatam class here in Mayapur. And wonderful to start the session. And thank you very much for attending. So I'll see you in the next session. Thank you. Hare Krishna. There you go.